Hello, everybody. Thought you'd never show. We're very excited to have another new episode for you this week, this time to talk about horror's greatest franchises. So you'll see what we have in store for you now.
Frights! Camera! Action!
In movies and television is one of the worst problems facing our society. Never mind.
We have such sights to show you.
So guys, the first franchise we're going to talk about is
Alien.
Now, I think personally I would include Predator into this umbrella because I feel like the two universes are so closely involved. But for today, we're just going to focus on the Alien part of that franchise. Now, of course, it all started with the first film in 1979 starring Sigourney Weaver, where we get our first look at what is to become the iconic xenomorph. Now, the first film involves a crew in space where the crew make their way down to a crash site of an alien ship that has eggs inside. Now, of course, one of those eggs hatches a monster, or at least a monster to us, and essentially impregnates one of the officers. The movie goes on to be an incredible thrill ride full of suspense, anticipation. We really don't know what's going to happen next. But that movie was so successful in 1979 that it spawned a ton of sequels and a TV series, as well as a few video games, with one of them being very popular called Alien Isolation. Now, the character of Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, was so iconic that they did have her in 4 sequels, and that successful video game actually featured her daughter, who was trying to look for her mom somewhere in space after she had gone missing. Sigourney Weaver was able to get quite a career out of this film. She did amazingly well. She went on to do all 4 films and became this iconic character as Ripley for the rest of time. Alien is not only famous for its horror elements, but it's also famous for its science fiction elements because everything is so well done, the world building is so impressive, a lot of practical effects, a lot of amazing set design, and of course, that timeless sound design. Alien is definitely a franchise that you should check out in depth. And if you can, check out the full list of movies as well as the series Alien Earth. And if you're really feeling brave, you should turn on Alien Isolation. You will not regret it. So if you're going to get into this franchise, don't hold your breath because remember, in space, no one can hear you scream. Now for our next franchise, we gotta talk about
Friday the 13th.
It is the franchise that spawned the elusive Jason Voorhees. He's arguably one of the most famous characters in all pop culture media of all time. Anyone who sees a hockey mask automatically thinks of him, and he's obviously been present for the majority of films. Now this series originally started off as Friday the 13th, and in the original film, spoiler alert, it is Jason Voorhees' mom who is the killer. Now, the film was such a huge success on such a low budget that they were immediately ordered to make a sequel, but they obviously hadn't planned for it when it was written. As I understand, Victor Miller was told to write the story and that it was just a standalone film not meant to have any sequels. Now, of course, when it came to writing a sequel, it was time to try and find a way to reintroduce Jason Voorhees. Now, in beautiful early 80s fashion, they did not give a reason. For whatever reason, the next time that we see the present day in this movie, he's somehow old again after having jumped out of the lake in a dream sequence as a drowned dead child. So we never truly understand how Jason Voorhees showed up. There are theories that he was there the whole time for the first movie, but we never see him. And perhaps he's helping his mom kill some of the camp counselors. Now in the second movie, even though he doesn't have his iconic hockey mask right away, it's still a fantastic slasher. A lot of people don't understand why he doesn't have the mask when they see it for the first time because they don't know that he only receives his hockey mask officially in the third film. Now, in the third film, he gets his hockey mask by stealing it from one of the people who were up there at Camp Crystal Lake. And rumor has it, it was in the trunk of one of the crew members and they modified the mask for the movie, but it was originally just a basic hockey mask that was made at the time. Now, the series went on to spawn so many sequels. They were asked year after year from Paramount to make another film, so Sean Cunningham just kept pushing them all out. And eventually, the licensing was bought by New Line Cinema, and they did push a few more out With the likes of Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X in Space, the Friday the 13th remake, and of course, Freddy vs. Jason. Now, arguably, the Paramount era is much better because there was a lot more care in the movies. And as the franchise went on, the ideas just got a little more loose and a little bit crazy. Personally, one of my favorites is Freddy vs. Jason, especially for the portrayal of Jason Voorhees. Although he wasn't played by the iconic Kane Hodder, bringing in Ken Kersinger for this time to play Jason Voorhees, I love the look of his costume, I love the wear and tear, I love the platform boots, and I also love his Frankenstein kind of walk that he uses throughout the movie. Many fans hate the Freddy vs. Jason version. You have people who prefer the era before Part 6, you have people who prefer after, and you have many people who hate the remake, love the remake, hate Freddy vs. Jason, or love Freddy vs. Jason. That being said, the fan base is very widespread, but all in all, as a franchise, its continuity is pure garbage. We all know it, we still love it, and we continue to watch it. I do hope that for the future of the franchise, we do see something that's more true to the original Jason, instead of the boring Jason universe bullshit that we have right now. Unfortunately, with the long list of the court battle, we haven't been done with an official film for a long time. They decided to rebrand Friday the 13th into Jason Universe, and we all hate it, and we're hoping that more films will come out like our fan film, Friday the 13th, The Return of Jason. You can watch it right now on YouTube if you like. We really hope you do. We loved it. A lot of the fans love it, and we do hope that it becomes an example for the future of the Friday the 13th franchise. So of course, if you aren't a fan or you know of Jason Voorhees, but you've never explored Friday the 13th as a franchise, we highly recommend it. There's a lot of good parts, there's a lot of campy parts, cheesy parts, but ultimately you have a series of one steady slasher killing many, many, many people for the years. So we highly recommend that you check out the Friday the 13th franchise and many of the fan films that have been made in relation to that. All right, so the next franchise that we've got to mention is Halloween. The infamous Michael Myers. Just like Friday the 13th, unfortunately, this whole franchise is a mess. They actually have 4 separate timelines if you include the Rob Zombie remakes. And now, recently, in the past 10 years, we did get direct sequels to the first film, which were Halloween as an H40, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. It did gain a lot of popularity. It revamped the whole franchise back into pop culture. The first 2 films were fantastic, in my opinion. Unfortunately, the third film fell short with a terrible ending. Now, say what you will, it has been a big mess, but it is undeniable that there are many, many, many fans of Michael Myers. They love his stalking look, his blank face, his mask, which was originally made from William Shatner's face. Now, of course, the main part of our story does follow Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, where she becomes the key protagonist alongside our antagonist, Michael Myers. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis did end up getting quite an acting career from this. She started in the first movie in 1978 when she was very young, and she did go on to have a very fruitful career. Personally, we do love the Halloween series. We think it's great. We love John Carpenter. We love the soundtrack. We love the concept behind it. The only thing I would wish is that the series did not push out films in the 90s, much like Friday the 13th did, just as a cash grab to make money. We could have had a much better franchise because of that. So if you haven't already, but you know who Michael Myers is, we definitely think you should at least check out the first Halloween movie from 1978, as well as the 3 sequels made in the past 10 years. Alright guys, you can't talk about horror movie franchises without the one and only Freddy Krueger.
A Nightmare on Elm Street
Has become a staple since the release of its first film, donning the birth of our favorite character, Freddy Krueger. Played by the incredible Robert Englund, wearing his trademark striped sweater, brown fedora, his infamous glove, and of course his burned face and his signature voice. Now, interesting fact about Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger, besides the remake, he has been the only one to ever portray that role, hasn't been switched between actors. He became a household name because of his charming character and his silly comedy during his portrayal of Freddy Krueger. He actually recently got his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame this past Halloween. We're very happy for Robert Englund, and we wish that he could live forever and reprise his role of Freddy Krueger as many times as he can. Now, if you haven't checked it out, I definitely recommend you check out the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Of course, every story is centered around Freddy Krueger. He is essentially a demon from the dream world that when you think of him, fear him, and dream of him, he can essentially control your dreams, your nightmares, and kill you in your sleep. Every film is revolved around a group of teenagers trying to survive his reign, where he continues to try and kill the children of Springwood. His reign of terror supposedly ends with the ending of Freddy vs. Jason, where he is killed by Jason and Laurie and perhaps killed for the rest of time. There was an unfortunate remake with a fantastic actor portraying Freddy Krueger, but unfortunately he just isn't Robert Englund. We do hope to see where the Nightmare on Elm Street series may go from here. We don't think it's dead yet. There has been a huge surge in horror in the past few years, and we do hope to see something happen with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. If you haven't seen any of the movies, but you're curious to see what Freddy Krueger is like on screen, we highly recommend it. He's scary, he's funny, he's weird, he's ugly and burnt, but I'm telling you, that character that he has never leaves your mind or your dreams.
Every town has an Elm Street.
So now one of my favorite all-time characters is the one and only Charles Lee Ray, aka Chucky. He made his debut in the first
Child's Play
film, which was a huge hit. And fun fact about that movie, they actually used a difference between animatronics, a little person, and also a child to play Chucky in different scenes of the movie. His animatronics were incredibly impressive. His eyeballs were very, very real. And with the legendary Brad Dourif playing our one and only Chucky, he went on to reprise his role many times, being the only person to play Chucky since its inception in Child's Play. Child's Play was very interesting at the beginning, having the first trilogy being Child's Play 1, 2, and 3, following different characters and our same Chucky doll. And after he was officially destroyed in the third movie, he was brought back by Jennifer Tilly in The Bride of Chucky. Now, a lot of people hated that film. I personally loved it. I love Chucky's design, the way he was stitched up and missing hair. I think that's the best that he could look. And after that, we actually had 3 more movies that a lot of people frowned upon and didn't think were great. One of them being The Curse of Chucky, which I personally very much enjoyed. It actually starred Fiona Dourif, Brad Dourif's daughter. Now, after those 3 films, a series was created on the Sci-Fi Network that I personally think was very good. It may have fallen short a little bit in the context of story and trying to understand things, but having multiple seasons and bringing back multiple legacy characters was a huge win for me. So if you haven't seen Chucky, or if up until now you've been too scared to actually see him on the screen, we definitely recommend you check out the Child's Play and Chucky franchise. It's definitely one for the books.
Well, this little guy has a face only a mother could love.
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I wouldn't talk if I were you. Hi-de-ho.
All right, guys, you know we got to talk about
Hellraiser,
an awesome, memorable franchise when it comes to the horror world. Starting with the first film, they truly pushed the envelope when it came to gore and these hellish sceneries, interesting costumes, and of course, dark themes. Spawned originally by Clive Barker, based on his books, Hellraiser truly takes us into the world of the evil, of pain, of suffering, and of Leviathan. The franchise of Hellraiser went on to have a huge success, spawning sequel after sequel after sequel, as well as one remake in 2022. Now, one thing I want to mention, especially for those of you that are Hellraiser fans and that have seen most of the movies, I think that some of the later entries don't get the love that they deserve, and I want to explain why. There were at least 3 movies in the Hellraiser series where they essentially used a formula where they would write a film and insert it into the universe of Hellraiser. And one of my favorites follows a corrupt cop who essentially takes the lament configuration evidence from a crime scene and brings it back to his hotel room where he sleeps with a prostitute. He leaves, and when he comes back, he finds that prostitute dead and finds his whole world turning upside down. Now, of course, to someone who's looking very closely can easily see that he plays with the lament configuration while he's in the bathroom, but it truly doesn't feel like a Hellraiser movie right up until he finally meets the priest, aka Pinhead. Now, if you love the series, I recommend you watch every single film and take it for what it is. There are some very interesting concepts in there, meaning that you actually get some interesting history and backstory on how Pinhead came to be, when he was still a human, when he opened the lament configuration, and as well as looking at things like the rendition of Leviathan, what the lament configuration entails, and any insight you might get to the universe. If you want more details, you'll most likely have to read the books and do a little more research, but we honestly believe that watching every single movie in the Hellraiser series is worth a watch. We highly recommend that you check out Hellraiser if you love the franchise, if you love Pinhead, if you love the Cenobites, and if you love body horror.
Oh, yes. We have such sights to show you.
The very next franchise that we'd like to feature is
Tales from the Crypt.
a long-forgotten franchise. Starring our very own Crypt Keeper. Is a very memorable character who basically was the narrator and host to us, the guests, to see these different stories.
Tales from the Crypt.
Came to be originally in comic book form, spawning an anthology series. Now, even though some of these stories may seem low budget or TV movie style, following some big name directors, some independent filmmakers, some original stories with great practical effects and good scary moments. They really are worth watching.
Tales from the Crypt.
Eventually spawned 3 films and a cartoon, which was pretty good and obviously not as gory. Form the design and the look of the Crypt Keeper. They wanted someone who was funny, creepy, and strange, who looked like they were dead. So, of course, instead of using practical makeup, they decided to go the route of an animatronic puppet. And the real origins of his voice are just something that happened on the instant. Now, one really interesting fact, his eyes were the same very eyes that were used for Child's Play Part 1. So those eyes originally belonged to Chucky and did eventually make their way inside of the Crypt Keeper puppet. If you haven't delved into
Tales from the Crypt.
we highly recommend you checking out the movies, the series, and the comic books if you get the chance.
Cut! Cut! Oh, hello, kiddies. So glad you could join me.
Saw, yes, of course we have to talk about
Jigsaw.
Wanna play a game? It's one of the more modern series, and it's funny to actually see a franchise like Saw that was almost used in the same format that a lot of 70s and 80s and 90s slashers were used, meaning that they kind of made movie after movie after movie. A lot of the franchises that we did talk about previously, like Halloween or Friday the 13th or even Hellraiser, kind of pushed out films that weren't as good just for the sake of a cash grab to make money. But I do believe that Saw took a little more time and had a little bit more control, trying to follow a linear story, almost like you're watching, like a 15-hour film, for example. Now, it follows a series of people in traps, people that presumably did not appreciate their life, that had issues that they didn't want to fix, whether they were addicts or pieces of shit. They essentially didn't want to better their life. And John Kramer, the man behind these traps and the man behind the mask, or that little puppet on the tricycle that we've all learned to love, was actually diagnosed with cancer. And that gave him a new reflection on his life and somehow inspired him to start killing people. Or rather, as he says, giving people the choice to stay alive or not. Now, what's very original about this series and what stuck with people, besides the intense body gore and crazy situations, were the originality of the traps. Most of these are based in real-world mechanical engineering, which actually gives some ground to the realism being seen here. Now, the acting isn't always great, the story isn't always fantastic, but the kills, the traps, the situations, they truly are timeless. They spawn many, many sequels, one prequel, one spin-off, and one new installment that was rumored to be released this year, but has since been delayed. Now, if you haven't checked out the Saw series, I warn you that it is very gory, that it's very gruesome. Now, even amongst the horror fans, not everyone appreciates such extreme gore, but the likes of this series is worth watching just for the ingenuity of the traps, the interesting stories, and the interesting situations. It's got a ton of twists and turns, and that legacy continues to follow itself all the way through the movies. We highly recommend that you check out the Saw franchise.
My body had not been strong enough to repel cancer cells, yet I had lived through a plunge off a cliff. But to my amazement, I was alive. And I was determined to spend the rest of my days testing the fabric of human nature.
So now the next mention on our list,
VHS.
Now what makes this one especially interesting is that it has spawned several sequels, but it is each a collection of short stories by different filmmakers, directors, writers, and actors. Seeing as they are very different in their own array, it's very hard to get bored of a series like this. Even though each movie kind of has its own underlying story that's supposed to sort of continue from movie to movie, the main meat of the movie are these short films. We honestly think it's worth checking out because if you're a local filmmaker or an independent filmmaker like we are, you can derive a lot of inspiration from the idea of seeing these micro-budget films being created, executed, and obviously distributed to a huge array of people in the horror community. I'm sure that many people have made careers out of these small films that they've made part of the VHS series, and I wouldn't be surprised if more of these filmmakers come back to make more entries in the future of the VHS franchise. I don't know if they'll ever have the amount of installments that, let's say, Saw or Hellraiser has, but I do hope that they go on to make more, because personally, I love it. It's very reminiscent of Creepshow, reminiscent of Masters of Horror. It's got a lot of these micro stories that are very, very interesting, full of body horror, suspense, science fiction, and otherworldly ideas that are just inspiring to many, many creators. So if you haven't seen it yet, check out the VHS franchise. You won't regret it. It's really, really cool.
My apartment's haunted.
It's not haunted. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation.
Now there's one we have to mention, the most modern and most recent on our list, the one and only Terrifier franchise starring Art the Clown. Now, this is one of the installments that actually has the least amount of sequels, but a fair decent amount of appearances by Art the Clown, because of course Damien Leone made a few entries in short format before we actually got our first Terrifier film. So far, there have been 3 full-length features. They are all equally brutally gruesome, but of course, if you love that kind of thing, you will think these films are awesome. The Terrifier franchise and Damien Leone are very well known for pushing the envelope as some of the most recent gory films of all time. In particular is Terrifier 2. There is a crazy, crazy scene of a woman that gets tortured in a bedroom, dismembered, ripped apart, and then Art proceeds to leave her alive. When he comes back, he brings Javel and salt with him, pours the Javel all over her, and then rubs the salt on her like she's a piece of steak being spiced to be put on the barbecue. It's very gruesome, it's very long, it's very detailed, and it's very fucked up. Now, honestly, it's not for the queasy and it's not for the weak. If you like this kind of stuff, go out and enjoy it. If you're not sure about this kind of gore, you might not like it. It's very intense, so you may have to look away at certain parts. Now, the design of Art the Clown is phenomenal. Obviously a character to be here for a very long time, aptly portrayed by the amazing David Howard Thornton. He comes to life with that makeup, that prosthetic on his face, and his amazing body language. Art the Clown never says a word, but has an infinite amount of expressions, much like a mime would, although he is more of a clown. Now, the most interesting thing about the series of Terrifier is, of course, the mystery aspect. The viewers like us watch the films hoping to get breadcrumbs to understand where Art the Clown really came from, who he is, what he is, or where the story is going to go from here. Personally, I think a lot of people were disappointed with the third film because the film was rushed for a release date. A lot of scenes were deleted or removed, and some not even filmed. That being said, I still very much encourage Damien Leone, the whole team, to go and make the next film. They will not disappoint. Now, if you're into horror and you can handle this type of gore, then we highly recommend that you check out the Terrifier franchise. Honestly, Art the Clown is going to scare the shit out of you. He's ultimately very, very creepy, and just watch over your shoulder when you walk alone in the streets. He might be right behind you. Well, thanks again for joining us, everybody. I really hope that you enjoyed our choices for the best horror movie franchises. And if you like what you see and you like to hear me talk, please like and subscribe so you can watch all of our videos as they come out each new week. We'll have a new episode for you next Sunday. Thanks again, guys. Take care and good night.